Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2017 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from McGilvery Speedway in the beautiful town of Speedway, Indiana. Tonight's show is presented, as always, by the Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the Verizon IndyCar Series. If by chance you hadn't heard, and I can't imagine how you couldn't have, the Speedway Museum has an A.J. Foyt exhibit. It is absolutely spectacular. I have some books. If you haven't seen it, look at it. If you haven't been there, it's now the countdown now is to days. So you want to get over and take a look at it. It's really spectacular. And for those of you who, like me, can't seem to figure out a computer and you have a problem, you need to go to Computer Overdrive. It's located on northeast corner of Lyndhurst and Crawfordsville Road next to a barber shop. So while they're working on the computer, you can get your hair cut. You need to call Jack, tell him your problem, set up a time. He'll take care of it. Number is 317-328-0766. And also, if you haven't looked up or joined Trackside Online, you're making a mistake. You need to go to tracksideonline.com and sign up. You will get all of the press releases from all of the race teams. You'll get their inside scoop on what they know because people talk to them. It's a good thing to do, and it's only about $24 a year. So if you get a chance, go to tracksideonline.com and sign up. You'll be glad that you did, believe me. Also want to let you know that the Autosport Radio show is now streamed live on Twitter and Facebook, in addition to being live on YouTube. So if you can't get it on one, by golly, you'll find it somewhere else. Hey, how many watched the Gateway race? How many fell asleep before the end? Oh, that's right. I forgot the old guy. Yeah, I forgot about him. The chimney sweep fell asleep. Did everybody like the pole winner? No. Everybody like the winner? Yes. Did you like the starting time? No. Yeah, I think something's got to be done about that, and I understand that the Iowa race is now looking, I don't know if it'll be in 18, but it might be in 19, go to the night race on Saturday night like it used to be when they had standing room only. So that's a possibility. Also, for those of you who have an interest, my first scheduled guest for next week is Jack Harvey. As you probably have noticed, my first guest isn't here. He just called 5, 6, 8 minutes ago. He's got a family emergency and he had to pull out. So he got me for a while. My other guest, I'm told, will be here. And I think you will find him very interesting in what he's doing, what he's building, or his wife are doing. And we're going to talk about that. But generally speaking, what does everyone think of the series so far and how it's going? Everybody like it? Well, aside from the fact we need more ovals. Aside from that, does everybody like what's going on? The closeness of I think Will Power is out of it. Darn it. He took himself. I found it kind of interesting. I don't know what television station I was watching, but when they replayed what happened, it seemed to me that he was pretty much by himself. And I heard him say that he got dirty air from Mr. Newgarden. Well, during the race, everybody got dirty air. I mean, for Pete's sake, at one time or another, everybody had it. So it seems to me there's only one guy that lost the car into the wall, and guess who? Unfortunately, I'm sure Ed thought, well, he hit the wall, they'll bounce off, so he went high, and much to his chagrin, that's where Will Power remained. It's too bad. It should be interesting this weekend. Some changes being made. My guest next week is driving the last 2 races for Dale Coyne Racing. And hello. So it should be kind of a fun race, I think. How many of you have been to Watkins Glen? Is it not a great place for a racetrack? a great place to be, a great place to hang out, and if you are a person who likes wine, it's even better. And I understand through my very close personal friend who's not paying attention at the moment that they have a lot of vegan restaurants. Isn't that right, Chuck? Chuck, am I disturbing you at all? I said that Watkins Glen has a lot of vegan restaurants.
That's right.
And you're going to visit one, the good one.
More than one.
The good one. Seneca Lake Lodge. If anybody's going out there and you haven't before been to Seneca Lake Lodge, you will want to go. It is spectacular. The food is good. They've got a bar with about 6,000 arrows in it. I'm not sure why. They have stuff from the when Formula One ran there. So it's a great place to be. This weekend, the United States Auto Club is running the Silver Crown cars at DuQuoin. Anybody going to DuQuoin to see the Silver Crowns? Don't everybody holler at once. Oh, you're going? Okay, Chief's going. That's good. And if you haven't heard, I'm going to let you in on a secret. The U.S. Nationals begin this Thursday. But it starts with the amateur classes. And Cruz Pedregon, I'm assuming, he's having an open house. The public is invited at his shop in Brownsburg. And on Friday, the Schumacher people have one as well in Brownsburg. So if you're out and about and want to check it out, stop by their shop. They have open house. You're welcome to go and see what goes on. And for those of you interested who are going to be here and not going to Watkins Glen, I will have 3 pairs of tickets for the Nationals. So if you can go and would like to go, get a ticket, throw it in a hat. He washed the hat today, I checked. And at the end of the program, we will draw for 3 pair of tickets. I think they're good for any day of the Nationals. Anybody got any comments about anything? Usually everybody has something to say about something. Well, you're looking at your phone, so you're not paying attention. You know. What?
I'm impressed how many American drivers we have now.
In U.S. Nationals? Oh, yeah. And there's more at the waiting door. All they need is, I found kind of interesting, and I'm not sure, I haven't really paid too much attention to what happened, but I'm sure you noticed that Kanaan had a problem early on, and he ran for a while, and then they called him in and told him to get out of the car. Now, I can't read lips, but I know full well what he said wasn't very pleasant. And when the TV people went to interview him, he refused to talk, said, go talk to Chip. And of course, Chip wouldn't say anything either. Yeah, I was awake. So the wonder is, according to Paul Tracy and Townsend Bell, is that the kiss goodbye sort of thing? Because he said they couldn't get any points. It wouldn't make any difference. And maybe Chip figured he banged the car up once. Let's not take a shot at second. Interesting. And I don't know that it's true, but I have been told by nobody that really knows a whole heck of a lot of anything that Mr. Andretti is going to stay with Honda, which will keep Alexander Rossi in his fold because I know Ganassi wants him if they switch to Chevy, and I guess Alexander will leave if it's not a Honda team. He will go to a Chevy team. And I think, been watching the kid, he's starting to catch on. He's going to be a winner, I think. He'll be good to have around, good to see. How about Connor Daly? How about his performance, huh? I think he showed that he knows how to drive a car. You got to give him one that he can drive, which they did, and he performed well. So, I'm sorry? Well, you just do, if Simon didn't move over, you just push him over. What the heck, just push him over and go. I thought that was a spectacular pass. And then you hear Power saying, well, I got dirty air from Newgarden. Well, I got to think that Joseph had dirty air from Simon coming up behind him as well, but he didn't hit the wall. find that kind of strange. Oh well. There's only 2 races left in the season. It's going to be a toss-up. I think there's 4 or 5 guys that are still in the hunt, and of course the final race in 3 weeks in Sonoma plays double points, so that could be very interesting to see how that all plays out. Anybody got a favorite they'd like to see win? What? Nobody wants Will to win? Oh, jeez. Can't understand that. Well, I don't think Connor's close, but yeah, but if he wins the race, it still won't matter. Oh yeah, Hinch, the old Hinch. Is he still in the run? I don't think he is. Oh, but he's always fun to watch. And I think the squawking that was done on the pass by Newgarden of Simon. If anybody's watched over the years, there's a guy that's running now, 1 to 500 this year, that has done that many times. He makes it once in a while, but not every time. And he has put a few cars in the fence. But, you see an opening, you go for it. That's how you win. You see an opening and you go. I don't recall anybody passing out a book, the pleasantries of racing high-speed cars. You don't signal what you're doing, you just find an opening and go. So it should be kind of fun. Now the gentleman that I have coming in here in another few minutes, I hope, is doing something I think you're going to find very interesting. He and his wife are making a documentary on a guy by the name of Grant King. Anybody remember Grant King? Well, they're making a documentary on him, and the people that they've had come into town to be a part of it is astounding. And of course, a lot of them are here. But Al Unser has invited him out to shoot a piece with him at the museum. I understand that the Agajanian brothers will come in from California to Albuquerque. But we'll find out all the skinny on what's going on, what they're doing, when it's going to be available, and where it's going to debut. It should be, well, we'll find out. We'll talk to it when he gets here. But Grant was quite a character, very, very intelligent, knew how to build a race car, had a lot of good guys driving for him. He had been known on occasion to get upset. Didn't have time to dilly-dally, but we'll find out about this upcoming. And again, I apologize. Cruz had to call and cancel because he had a family situation somewhere. Oh, goody, a question, a comment. What? Well, I'm tingly. Bailey Ebaugh got a job at daycare. Was her lifelong dream. Does that mean she can take care of old people like me? Oh. Well, that's all I need a day. I sleep at night, so I don't need just daycare. Although Sharon will tell you I don't sleep that well at night sometime, of late. I mean, I sleep fine, but I keep getting interrupted in my sleeping. I would also like to take this time, as long as we're sitting here and you're stuck listening to me, I want to thank all of those who have helped me get from point A to point B, because I'm not allowed to drive yet. There have been 4 or 5 people that have chauffeured me about like I'm a useless bum. Well, I shouldn't say that. Somebody say, well, you are. I've gotten a lot of phone calls and emails, and things are coming along fine. A week from tomorrow, I find out if I can drive again, or can start to drive again. I'm looking forward to that, and I know somebody sitting right over there. I won't mention her name, but her initials are Sharon Bates, who can't wait for me to drive. I will. And for those of you who took my suggestion and listened to the radio broadcast of the race, you heard Mark Janes give a very good shout out, for lack of a better word, for Autosport. And I got a lot of comments on that, because I must have stepped out for a smoke or something because I missed it. But Mark did plug Autosport, and I appreciate it. So instead of the 12 or 14 people that it might be finding out about it now, they have 4 or 5 million. Maybe somebody will say, we ought to listen to that clown. Doesn't anybody have something to say, a comment? You'd like to come up and make a comment about the series, or they want to see more ovals, besides me being the one that wants to see more ovals? A friend of mine went to meet with one of the executives at IndyCar, and he said 2 things about Don. The first thing he said to me when I met him was, we got to have more ovals. I said, yeah, that's true. And if you saw the last couple of races, they've been fantastic. Hopefully, when they get to the Glen and to Sonoma, the same will transpose from ovals to road course and have equally as interesting racing. But I think, to me, it's more dangerous to be running side by side in an oval with somebody running 200 miles an hour or something than it is on a road course, because you usually pass in the corners, and if you miss, you go in the sand. If you try to pass in the corners on an oval and you miss, you go into the safer barrier generally, or up into over the top of somebody, as Ed found out. And a friend of mine was over in their shop, and they said they got a couple of cars there and there's pieces scattered everywhere. But hopefully, and he commented that Fuzzy's still behind him and they'll be with him next year, so they're hoping to write off, after the last 2 races, write off the 17 season and go forward for the 18, and we wish him well. Anybody got a favorite driver of the young ones upcoming? What has he done that's spectacular? What, is that good for 3 places at the finish? I see. Okay. I think there are some very good, talented young drivers coming up the line. It's reported that Juncos is going to try and run a full season, hopefully run a full season next year. Now, if Kyle Kaiser only has to show up at the starting grid to win the title, he may well be the guy. That might be why Juncos has said they would like to run 2 or 3 races, because that's what you get when you win the Lights Championship. I think it's a 500 and 2 other races. There's a young man out of Florida who drove 2 races for Dale Coyne. In the first one, he could have had a top 10 finish, except they ran him out of fuel, and that's R.C. Enerson. This kid has got some talent, and he deserves to be in a car, and they're working diligently to make it happen. In fact, if you know him or his dad, they'll be out at Watkins Glen this weekend. Say hello. The Pro Mazda series, although their car count is low, has been an interesting series. Anthony Martin has run away with a couple of races, and unfortunately, the same could be said for his nemesis Vince, who ran away Sunday with the race. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out, and in the next week or 2 or so, we'll get Anthony Martin here. He's been here a couple of times, and everybody enjoyed him, so we'll find out what he has to say about the series and what his plan is for 2018. He won the USF 2000, which got him to the Pro Mazda. He's hoping to win the Pro Mazda so he can move up to lights. And I think he's obviously shown he has a talent, so there's another guy that's making his way up. Hey, Darren, who's your favorite young driver? Don't spit your food up. Who? Oh, well, okay. I guess you consider 35 years old to be a young driver. I'm sorry? I would say I'm younger than you, but if I did say that, I'd be lying. Big time.
Hey, it's Santiago's birthday today.
Well, did you send him a cake?
No.
What the heck good are you? You're saying all this stuff, what a wonderful kid he is, and you didn't send him a card or a cake or anything? You ought to be ashamed. I heard that Ann made a cake and you ate the damn thing. Is that true? Yeah, that's another young guy that's that Bellardi has tightened up their ship and have given him a car that he's moved up to second in points. He can't win the championship, but he certainly has shown that he has the talent to drive the car. The question will be, can he move up from there? With Chuck's help, I'm sure he probably can. Did you talk to him? Is he looking to move up? I mean, you're his Indianapolis daddy.
I only know what I read in the paper.
Oh, geez. You walked 4 miles to talk to him. Well, you were too out of breath to say anything? Yeah, there's some good drivers upcoming, and I think the Mazda Road to Indy program is showing it's really, really a good stepping stone to move up, because the cars are getting more like the Indy cars each time they make a new one. Oh, and it was announced, well, it wasn't announced, but it was announced by Dale Coyne Racing that Ed Jones won the Rookie of the Year, which is not a real surprise. He's had a very outstanding season. There's a kid that came from the Indy Lights into IndyCar and has done extremely well. Sebastian Bourdais showed quite well for getting back in the car after 14 weeks, recovering from a broken pelvis and broken leg and their parts and pieces. He drove a nice race, I thought. I think overall that IndyCar is in pretty good shape. I like some of the things that the staff, the executive branch is doing, the people they've brought in to help run the show and that know what they're doing. And Bill Pappas and Tino Belli and their staff has put together an outstanding car. And as everybody remembers, in 2009, when that car came out, my question to the engineer was, is this car going to run? They said, oh, the computer says it'll be fast. Well, the computer should have been driving the car because it wasn't quick. And this time they wind tunnel tested extensively, and they knew it would run, and it did. So that says something, I think, about the people they brought around. They're heading in the right direction. The crowd in Madison, Illinois was outstanding, and I think it will only get better. And I certainly think that if they, I'm sorry, am I keeping you awake, Steve? Steve, am I keeping you awake? Yeah. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That if they start the race a little earlier, they might get a few more folk. And I think with the sponsor, and I can't remember the car dealer's name, but he's huge. And it said, come see us, we sell by price. We have 14,000 new and used cars. I went, 14,000? Can you imagine what his monthly bill is? Holy Toledo. But they did a spectacular job of promoting the event, and the results showed for itself. And the good thing is, as it grows, they got more grandstands to fill. So, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Chuck was telling me the bus trip was great. After the race, when you got on the bus at 1:30 or so in the morning, you could right to sleep, nice and quiet. No frolicking. I know. So did you get, did they deliver you to the door, or did they park in the quagmire out front somewhere? Took you right to the door, I see. Were the tickets they gave you any good? Were they good seats? Oh, that's not bad. Were you up that high, Chuck? Did you climb that high? Really? You didn't get a nosebleed or anything? Wow. Well, I know that. How many besides the two over here? Do you need any help reading that, Steve? You need help with it? You need a calculator? No, okay. Besides these three over here, who else is going to Watkins Glen? Chuck, say I am.
My wife and I are.
Okay. Are you going? Why aren't you going? Well, you've had that for 30 years. You trust Steve with Suzanne? I think I would reconsider that. I see. Oh, well, I will be glued to the tube because they will be streaming everything. And don't forget, you want to see the practices and qualifying, you go to racecontrol.indycar.com. And you will see it. You can go on the IndyCar.com website, and you can look up the race, Watkins Glen, and underneath it'll say schedule. You can look up a schedule and see when they're running, when they're practicing, when they're qualifying, and whatever isn't shown live on NBC Sports Network will be streamed live with Mark Janes and his hooligans describing all the activity. So check it out. As we take a quick break, I want to remind you tonight's show is also presented by Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville, Indiana. You got to come to the country to see why the best prices are in the country at Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville. You'll also see why Sam is always at or near the top of customer satisfaction. When he sells you a car, he doesn't stand behind you, he stands alongside you. You just take I-69 north to exit 34, go east 1 mile, and you won't miss him on the right-hand side. He's got a huge dealership, and he will treat you right. You ever wondered what it's like to ride in an Indy car at 180, 190 miles an hour? Well, there's a way to find out. Go to IndyRacingExperience.com, find a date that you can be available, and make a reservation and take a ride. It's fabulous. And in the promo box, put SJ1, and the price is 50% discounted. So give it a shot. You want to see what it's like? Take a ride. You'll love it. You have anything that needs to be embroidered, whether it's a hat, shoes, jacket, T-shirts, it doesn't matter. Driver's uniform, softball uniform, it doesn't matter. Stitches, too, can handle it. You just give Fran a call. She loves to talk. Her number is 317-271-3444. Tell her what you need and what you got, and she'll tell you how she can take care of it for you. And if it's time to get new insurance for your home, your car, or if you've got a commercial building, do what I do. Go to VP Insurance, talk to Mike Pardee. He can help you. A lot of people have listened to me. They've gone there and said, holy smoke, it's a pretty good price. He's located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. You can give him a call. His number is 317-248-0070. That's VP Insurance in Speedway, 317-248-0070. And if you are a vintage car fan and want to know what's going on with it, go to svra.com and subscribe to Vintage Racing Quarterly. It's a great magazine, first class all the way. And since Tony now has, well, he put out the magazine before that, is Controlling Interest to Trans Am. They got a great Trans Am magazine. And if you're into that, you can get that as well. Now, my next guest is a gentleman I've been talking about. He's a very interesting guy. He's been around racing most all his life, and he hasn't lost all his marbles yet, which is kind of strange. He has, as I said, has been working on diligently, he and his wife working on a documentary on Grant King. I want to find out what prompted all of that, his connection to Grant, and what's been going on. Please welcome Mr. Bill Throckmorton. Well, you're not all bloody, so apparently you didn't beat up leaving the house.
No, I don't think I have to move in with you tonight.
Good. I was kind of nervous.
Yeah, me too.
How well did you know Grant, and how did you know him?
Actually, my mother's sister was Doris. Still is, yes. I probably met Grant when I was 2 to 3 years old. Took a liking to him. He treated me like his own. Actually, I ended up with my first race car when I was 4 years old, and that was quite a story in itself. Got a quarter midget that was brought back from Spokane, Washington, from Mike and John Gregg, and it was a dud. Grant didn't like it, so you could only imagine how he talked about that. He ended up getting another one, put it together, and the two people I remember that were there, actually there was a bunch of people. Jim Hurdebeest gave me my first quarter midget at the age of 4, along with Ralph Ligori, Dale Burton, and from there I was hooked. And honestly, if you know Grant, I was probably sweeping floors from the time I was 4 years old and cleaning machinery.
You had to, because he sure didn't.
Right. I mean, I was cheap child labor. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've ended up owning race cars myself for over 40 years, either driving or owning race cars. So that means I'm not too bright, or I thoroughly love the sport. And I think I really love the sport.
When did the idea come to you about let's do a documentary on the life of Grant King.
You know, that's kind of funny. Me and Stephanie were talking several times, and I grew up around a lot of the people. I mean, Billy Vukovich used to come down to my office. He'd sit there, drive you nuts, but you're not going to throw him out of there. I had work to do, so, you know, you deal with Billy, and he's dry. I grew up with a lot of the people. A lot of famous drivers either drove for Grant, well, they did drive for Grant, or drove Grant's cars. And if you go from the IndyCar scenario to the point where he had to build Champ Dirt cars, sprint cars, midgets to pay to run his own IndyCar team, which is very different than the way it is now. You know, the car owners back then paid the bills, and they picked their driver, which I love that scenario myself. And it'd be nice to see a few teams pick up a few good drivers and run them nowadays. But we ended up talking, me and the wife, because of all the history, and I get kind of upset that a lot of the new kids that are racing now, you see them, somebody else actually carries their helmet bag in. They don't know anything about the race cars, and they hop in and they race. And I felt like I was very fortunate to grow up around a lot of the famous drivers. But they were a different breed. And we talked about it, and the more we talked about it, people need to know, and the younger generation needs to know, how those people had to come through the ranks to race. And that has a lot to do with our story.
Now, name some of the people that you've had come in and want to be a part of it. You've invited some, but some have heard about it and wanted to be involved. Who are some
Well,
of the
I think
people?
our most famous one's probably Don Kay.
Oh, that goes without saying.
But I have Al Unser, Tom Sneva, Billy Englehart, Merle Bettenhausen, the Bettenhausen boys. I'm hoping that we get Linda Vaughn this weekend.
Don't leave when we're done.
Yeah. I have Dave Flick, Jerry Weeks. The list just goes on and on. There's, it started out as just a thought, and it has grown to where we have 33 hours of film and footage with a lot of very famous race drivers, and it's pretty incredible.
The thing that impressed me as much as anything is the fact that you had this idea, and once the word started getting out, you started getting calls. Hey, I'd like to be a part of this. And some
Right.
pretty heavy hitters who created what is now IndyCar wanted to be a part of it. And everybody didn't love him, strange as that sounds.
Well, I mean, Grant wasn't the most, he wasn't a socialite, that's for sure. He called a spade a spade. Doris was pretty much the PR person because Grant was horrible with people. But he had a work ethic that was incredible. And as far as a craftsman, it was hard to touch. I've got people on there, and I made it quite clear when we did this, especially with Merle Bettenhausen, Steve Stapp. Steve Stapp and Grant would not say one nice word about either one. I mean, it was, but I told him, I said, we're not PC, I want the real deal. And I thought, okay, Steve might say a few things. Me and him have been good friends forever. Well, I couldn't get Bopper to be quiet. It was 3.5 hours of film. Junior Dreyer. I mean, he's been one of my heroes forever. Pop Dreyer, there's a lot of history there. If you've been to the shop, and I know through Bench Racers, a lot of people got to tour, and my shop is like a museum, and we just keep adding to it. But it's a working museum. We actually work in there every day, but there's a ton of history from 1970 all the way through probably 1990.
Grant had understood race cars. He knew how to build a car. He knew, I've seen a couple of the pieces. You have your first little snippet that you brought in, I got to look at today. And they were showing a car, and he was explaining why the nose was this way and why this was that, and he had an explanation of what he was trying to do and make it smaller so it'd go through the air faster. A lot of stuff that nobody ever thought of until he did.
Right, and a lot of people don't realize it. It's kind of funny. I mean, Grant never had a ton of money to mess with. He worked his butt off to be able to run the Indy cars, but there were years he had 4 cars at the Speedway, and that's pretty incredible. But now 76, which we're talking about, a lot of people don't know, but he fabricated the cowling and the nose for Foyt's cars. And he would fly to Texas, fabricate that. Well, AJ screwed up and left Grant in a room too long. And within 5 months, AJ had Grant's car over in his garage. Grant had AJ's car in his garage, and they were swapping notes on how to make them quicker. And AJ never got mad. He just chuckled and said, "You did a really good job of building my car."
Grant was a character. I got along very well. I mean, a lot of people did. I believe he was brought from Canada by Rala Volstead. I know we were trying to get in touch with him and
Yes.
get some audio out from him about it. I know Eldon and Grant got along very well.
Well, and I must say that I have Eldon, did a great interview with Eldon.
That had to be 3.5 hours too.
It was close.
Yeah, okay.
It was close. It was very enjoyable. I think Eldon was there the day with the Bittenhausen boys, Kerry and Todd. It's just hard to remember everybody that's on there. But in the last week, Al Unser contacted me and said, "Hey, I'm so into this and enjoy it. You need to come out to my museum, and I want you to bring the film crew, and we're going to film right there." And Al has just gone out of his way. I mean, he's been incredible.
You know, I got along with Grant. I used to stop in a shop. It was not easy to get to his desk. You had to wade through things to get through to it, and then you had to look over to see him because it was piled with. But he was a good guy. I mean, if I needed something, he'd go out of his way to help me. Got along well with him. Probably because I would stop talking so we could do a little work, and then I'd start in again. And he was just, I thought he was just a good guy and very smart.
Oh.
Really understood what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredibly smart. It's kind of funny because Tom Dick, a photographer for some of the people that remember way back in the open wheel cars, Grant and Tom were great friends, and Grant would go by somewhere and he'd pose and he'd put his fingers out like this. Tom would take a picture. Next thing you know, Grant was building parts that people were buying from him instead of Dan Gurney.
Clever man. How did he lose his life?
Ended up, he was out in Danville, I think Cartersburg Road, and he was a god-awful driver anyway. I hated to ride with him, so I tried not to. In fact, I think Mike's driven him around, a buddy of mine that's here. Nobody wanted to ride with him. And he ended up with Parkinson's, which made it even worse, and ran a stop sign, got T-boned, and he died right there on the spot.
That was quite a shock when I heard that Grant was gone. But I always found it interesting to listen to him. He got to be pretty close with the Agajanians. He got pretty close with the Agajanians.
Oh, yeah, for a long time, long time. Actually, I have a snippet of film where JC is on film talking about Grant, and he's talking about at El Centro or one of the tracks that JC owned. And he said, I had this 14-year-old kid that I couldn't let in the track, but he snuck in, and then he started building cars and bringing them. And he goes, next thing I know, I'm sponsoring his cars at the 500 for almost 10 years. And they became great friends. And I was fortunate enough this week that JC Jr. and Chris Agajanian and Kerry are going to be in our snippet.
Yeah, they're coming in from California now. You must have said something to JC to get him to leave, because he doesn't leave very often.
I had some mementos that they don't have for their museum.
Oh.
So.
You bribed him.
Yeah, I'm good at bartering.
There you go. Now, you got a lot of his stuff that he had left behind that his wife had and didn't have any use for. Now you have it.
Right.
So you're going to have a Grant King museum. Are you going to have room in there for that, or are you going to have to take some of the race cars out?
No, because to tell you, a lot of people have seen the main shop, but if you go up to my motor room, and we still build engines in there today for our sprint cars. It's fully functionable, but I have made that identical. I was going nuts. There's an 8-track tape player with Elvis 8 tracks, and I about went nuts. I soldered everything back together, and I called Stephanie, and I said, listen, this damn thing's going to make music. And it did. So I even got the 8-track player just like it was, and this room is as famous as the shop. We had Willie Davis in there. That's where Galen Fox learned to build engines. You had Donnie Ray Everett in there. You had Grant. Earl Gertie spent some time in there. You've got Bob Hatch. I mean, there's a list, and it's a perfect, just like it is, and we use it every day, just like it was in 1970.
Now, you have 37 hours of video now, and you're going to add another 3 or 4, no doubt, with Al and JC and
Right.
Carrie and Chris. What is your plan with the final product? What are you attempting to do? Are you going to make, 5 30-minute segments? Are you going to make, what are you going to do with it?
I don't know, Don. I'm not that smart. You saw a snippet of 8.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just a trailer to get people interested.
I know. That's why you're here.
Let me ask you what you thought of that.
I thought it was outstanding. It was well shot. There was some guy that's kind of the narrator that could use a little polish, but aside from that, it was good.
I agree.
Yeah, it was you.
Right. I agree.
But, overall, I thought, what you heard and what we saw. Now, what I want to see is Merle Bettenhausen's piece. That had to be something.
That was bone chilling. I've known Merle for a long time. He was one that I definitely said, this is no holds barred. I want the real story. He goes, you want the real story? I said, most definitely. And while I was interviewing him, it was bone chilling. It's something that everybody ought to hear. It was just unreal. And the camera crew and everybody in the shop at the time, just kind of, you could see their jaws drop during the interview. I mean, it was incredible.
And he made the comment that he's raced an IndyCar 3 laps. First 2 went along all right. The third one didn't do so good. That's where he lost his arm.
No. And I was very upfront with him and asked him hard questions about that. And he answered them.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the answers are bone chilling.
Oh, I'm sure. He's quite a character. He spent many years as the communications and PR for Ray Skillman for a long time. A lot of years.
He's a great speaker, good guy, great attitude. Just a lot of fun to be around. And the one thing I caught on real quick, the right side's the not so fun side, and I think the left side he always has the women on because that's his fun side.
No doubt.
So
you have all this in the can, as they say, and you're going to put some more in. What is when you'll have something ready, have a trailer made of 5, 10, 15 minutes that you can say, look, here's what's coming.
Well, we're actually, you saw the first snippet today. It's 8.5 minutes. I can't do a trailer that's going to be under 15 minutes just because of the people I have. And I can't get everybody on there for the snippet, which really bothers me. But we're probably in 3 weeks, and with your permission, we would like to debut the trailer on your show.
All right. Yeah. Now, there's only one catch to that. The piece I did isn't there.
No, that's. I'm not sure. We're trying to do like a supper club. We've already got 2 events booked, and we want to show like hour to hour and a half segments. And with all the footage I have, that's pretty incredible. I think people will want to see it, and I actually want to see it again, just because I'm such a big race fan that I can't remember everything we talked about. But some of the stories were just incredible.
And I think, you and I have talked, and I said if I were you, number one, I would be calling Canadian television because Grant was a Canadian.
Right.
It would be worthwhile. The West Coast, where he used to be, would be worthwhile to get it on television. But putting together parties like you have and show an hour and a half as like a tease. We'll be here 2 weeks from now for the next segment. See, I'll bet you have most of them come back.
Well, and that's what we hope. It's kind of set up like a museum. I enjoy showing people, and it's actually educational. You've been in there, and you see a lot of the stuff, and I keep bringing in more and more. We're going to have different cars that come in that people get to see. We have a beautiful sprint car right now that this car is probably famous because if it wasn't around, nobody would know who Sheldon Kinzer ever was, or Galen Fox.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Is your shop open if somebody's riding along and they said, we're at Crawfordsville. We're just getting to Dandy Trail. Let's pull in. I know it's down there. Is it open to come in?
I'm easy. If somebody pulls in, I have just as much fun. If I'm not in the middle of building something, I love showing people around. It's easy to get a hold of us. Phone call. And Stephanie, you can't hardly, she never gets quiet, so she loves showing people also.
She called tonight. And when I saw it, I went, uh-oh.
Well, I'm surprised
Oh, no.
you're able to talk to me right now.
Well, I thought she was calling to say you couldn't get out of the house.
Well, no, I took off early.
Yes. And the reason he couldn't is her daughter's 16th birthday today, and you would think there was a prom. We sang happy birthday to her here, and she wasn't even here.
True story.
So it was, when she called, I went, uh-oh, because when I got a call here, I said, something's up, and it was Cruz saying he couldn't make it. He had a family problem.
But let me say one thing. On this
say two things.
documentary, it's not so much just the Grant King. There were a lot of people through those doors. I grew up with Wally Muskowski. You have Jackie Howerton. You have Jerry Weeks. Don Brown. The list just goes on. And it's a lot of the characters is what the story's about also. And some of those stories were good too.
Sure.
Jerry Weeks was telling about Chalky, probably the end of his acetylene propane days. They blew up Al Unser's Viceroy tank out back. And Chalky came back in, and the old Bell helmet jacket was glued to his skin.
Oh,
And we figured that was the end of his acetylene propane bombs.
good thinking.
Yeah. So
Almost died in the process, but good thinking.
right, but it's just, the fun of that, and then there's stories in there because A.J. Watson's shop's right next door. I think A.J. ended up just about getting sued from All American Racers because he ended up with a new Eagle back in '72. Well, everybody had keys. Everybody shared equipment. Grant had gone over there, looked at the car, drew it up on his floor, and had an Eagle for $6,000, and I think Wilkie's had paid over $45,000 for theirs. And then they out-qualified him, so that didn't go over very good.
I'm sure not. And the other thing I found interesting, speaking of AJ, building some of his old cars that he ran in the 60s and 70s, and he'd sell them for $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. He was getting $250,000 for them now.
Right. Well, and I can remember, I was very young, and they had the Roger Ward car hanging in AJ's shop up above in the rafters, and the Bobby Unser's car was there also from '67, I believe. But AJ just laughed. He goes, some guy gave me $200,000 for this thing. I'm rich. And he was just tickled.
Yeah.
It was about 4 weeks later, he found out the guy sold it at an auction for over $1 million.
Uh-huh.
He was upset. And
Yeah.
I remember that. I was very young, and I remember that.
Well, I think the interesting thing, as you're pointing out, and you will see in this video when you get to see it, that not only was Grant a character and a story in and of himself, but the number of people that came there to talk to him, to learn from him, to get advice, or to work for him for that matter. I mean, it was the who's who of motorsports
Right.
upcoming. They all came to see Grant because Grant was known. They knew he could build a car. He not only ran cars, he ran against a lot of cars that he built himself.
Right.
So it was kind of interesting. I remember one year, and I can't remember when it was, that of the 33 cars in the race, I think 30 or 31 were Gurney Eagles.
Yes.
I can't remember, something like that. And
It's
I
real
think there
close,
was some
yeah.
years when Grant's cars had 6, 8, 10 cars. When
Right.
he owned one or two, and the other
Right.
ones he was trying to beat.
Right.
He was an interesting guy. I think I can't wait to see it. After seeing that little piece today, I can't wait to see what you put together. I think that the people, as you said, are the who's who, and some of the comments you had. JP, who's incidentally it's his birthday today. I think he's 75 or 80 or something, whatever he is, and he and Billy Vukovic. And you asked JP something, and he hesitated, and Billy said, hell, he can't remember. He lost his mind or something. It was funny.
Well, it was funny. They were sitting there, and Parsons started telling a story, and Vuki just looked at him. He said, I think what you're trying to say is you run out of talent.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
And I mean, it was interesting, but it was fun. Donald Davidson did a great job with me. Yeah, I love hearing Donald. I think a lot of people enjoy that. The more I think, there's just people that I keep naming on this. And some of the drivers and the cars that we talked about from 1970, you start out with Greg Weld, Art Pollard, then you go to George Fulmer, Larry Dixon, then you end up with Steve Krisloff, then you go to Tom Sneva, then you go to Bentley Warren, Sheldon Kinzer, John Martin. John Martin tells some great stories.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, and you saw the snippet where John says when Grant hired me and Sheldon and Harkey to run in '76, he goes, I showed up in January and Grant showed me the cars. It was a pile of T6 aluminum and conditioned in chromoly in a pile. And they had 3 cars that qualified for the race in 4 months.
Well, John Martin is a story in and of itself. What he's accomplished in all of the cars that he built himself, all the people he worked with, his understanding of building a car was probably, if not equal to Grant, was maybe one step behind him. But he knows race cars and understands them, and still doing it.
He's an incredible guy. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy John. Every time I see him, I can sit there and listen to his stories all day. And then we go to the newer version of guys. We have guys like Buckman. Some of his stories you have to edit out, but they're good. And you have Dave Flick. I mean, it's a wide range, a variety of people and all kinds of characters. I mean, it's interesting.
I think would be a fine idea is have a gathering at the museum and do a party there.
Well, I'm still trying to get a couple ladies over from the museum. Marty. I'd even buy you lunch.
I'll tell you what, you get Marty, Nina,
And Phyllis.
you get Marty.
Well, Nina's the only one that showed.
Get Marty,
I love Nina.
Get Marty, Nina, and Scarlett together. Boy, you might not want to go out to lunch with that 3.
Well, I know one that'll fit right in with them.
Yeah, so do I. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited. I'm very pleased that you are willing to show your first completed 12-minute thing so we can see it here and get people excited. Hopefully we'll be able to take that thing and put it on the website and say, here's what you're upcoming. Somehow do that.
We'll figure that out. You got to check that with the boss.
I know, because I sure as heck don't know how to do it. I can tell
Yeah,
you
you
that.
work better with her than I do sometimes.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, I work so well, I call her, she doesn't answer. And then she doesn't call back.
That can be a blessing sometimes.
Well, it could be. When she called today, I'm telling you, I thought, uh-oh. She said, what did you think about what you saw? I said, why didn't you ask the guy sitting next to you? Oh, he's been on the phone since he got back.
Yeah, yeah.
So I said, that's great. Well, I'm interested, and I can assure you people that have known and heard about Grant King, you're going to love it. It's really a good piece of work, and you learn a lot. I mean, it's nothing unusual, but you have a lot of video of Grant himself working on the cars, running the cars, with his Levi jacket on and his cowboy hat for a couple
Right.
years that he did.
Right.
He was a remarkable guy, and if I'm not mistaken, Doris was the first female allowed in the pit area, I think.
There's quite a discussion on that. I know it was, I think at the same year in 1970, I think Bignotti's wife had a friend. It was Doris and come on. Ran Dirt Cars Forever. Arnie Knepper's wife.
Oh.
I think those were the 4 ladies that initially were allowed in the pit area, but Doris had the first dog that was ever let in, Offie.
Yeah, and she got in because she was listed as the owner of the car. They couldn't keep her out.
Right. And the thing was, I mean, Doris did the PR. She would tow the cars for show. She would load them. I mean, it was hands-on. It wasn't a deal where, I own a car, my name's there. There was a lot of work.
Well, we're going to keep an eye out because in the next 30 to 60 days, you'll be ready.
I'm hoping in 30 days we'll get you a snippet, and then we'll probably start off with some of our supper clubs, and they're going to be high end. I like steak and lobster, so we'll have good movies and cocktails and enjoy a racing museum, and it'll be fun.
Now, wait a minute. Steak and lobster. Who's picking up the tab for that?
Well, I'm hoping you will the first time.
Well, that's one meal. Now, what about the other people?
Well, we'll figure that out. No, it's going to be neat. I mean, we're really going to have good food, and the shop's immaculate. It is like a museum. We do work in there every day, but you can go in every room, just like our back room. Junior Dryer, he's a hero of mine. Pop Dryer was an amazing man. Junior restored a lot of the cars at the Speedway. And Junior came to us, and I was fortunate because I'd known him for a long time. He said, "Billy, I got a problem." And he goes, "So what's wrong? Your chicken wings don't work anymore?" He goes, "That's the problem. I'm tired." He goes, "I want you to buy my stuff off of me." I thought, well, I'd really like to. Let's talk about it. Well, what we did, we bought his shop, basically all the equipment, and he took good care of me. But when Junior walked in, my back room is a museum identical to Junior's shop. He walked in and he just grinned from ear to ear. He can walk in and find any wrench he wants, any tool. He can open the cabinet. We took so many pictures and set that up just like Junior's shop. Then I still have the original tables from Jerry Weeks, Don Brown, Howerton.
And you think, listening to all this, you think, cripes, you can't even walk in that place. Yeah, you can. And you can eat off the floor, so if you are there and you drop your steak or your lobster on the floor, you can pick it up and eat it.
Yeah, anybody's welcome to get a hold of us and get a tour. I thoroughly enjoy that, and it's a great learning place.
You got to go down there and see it. It's really something. Now, you have to also realize a couple years ago it burnt to the ground. It's been rebuilt.
Yeah, we've been very busy on that, and I mean, Stephanie's done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work. A lot of friends have helped, and lost a lot of history there.
Oh yeah.
I lost a lot of stuff, but fortunately, I'm kind of a mess, and I have stuff strung everywhere, so I was able to fill it back up again.
Well, I appreciate you agreeing to come in here. Tell Stephanie that she's now my heroine for letting you out the door. Of course, I can see you hanging around with a bunch of 16-year-olds. That would have been a lot of fun.
Oh, no. I don't even like kids. No.
Well, good thing she won't be watching this, or you might find the door locked. I thank you for coming, and I got to tell you, folks, you keep your ear to the grindstone. I'll let you know when it's going to be here. You want to see it, come and watch it. It's phenomenal. You're going to be really impressed with what they've done, and they've hired good people, cinematographers that know what they're doing and understand it. And the editing they've done to what I've seen has been spectacular. So it's going to be fun to see.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
And we'll make sure we debut it here.
There you go. You'll see it here first. Wow. Big thanks to Bill Throckmorton doing the Grant King documentary. It's going to be something. What I saw was phenomenal. So next week, as I said, unfortunately, Nina probably can't make it, but we're going to have Jack Harvey will be here, and I have a couple others that are on the string we'll talk about. But keep an eye on on my website, autosportradio.com, and click on the Autosport Radio Show, and the guests will appear. Now, for those of you folk who said you wanted to go to the U.S. Nationals, I have 3 pair of tickets. Get your ticket stub out. And here, I know. Draw the first one.
I'll draw it out. Okay, here we go.
So I don't get accused of anything again.
All right.
Oh, well. 263545. 3545, I'm sorry. Dougie boy. Now, Doug, if nobody wants to go with you, you can invite me. I'll bet another one. Well, that'd be nice. The next one, I got to get your name, and I'll call it in, and it'll be there for you. The next number is 3547. 3547. Yeah. Dave, is that you? Are you saying yes? Okay. And the last pair of tickets are, now I know, Dave, you can take me because I think somebody's working, so you and I could buddy up. 3550, 3550. All right, for those of you who won, get your name on a piece of paper, get it to me, I'll call it in, and you just go to the gate 2, it's on the south end of the track, there's office trailers back there, you just go in and tell them, give them your name, and the tickets will be yours. They're good for one day, and I think the most fun night is Saturday night. Friday night they run at night, but they're just testing. Saturday they're out qualifying, so if you want to watch it, that's fun. You don't see it during the day, but you sure as heck see the fire at night. Wow. All right, thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around and putting up with me for the first 25 minutes. Hopefully that won't happen and torture you again. The next week, as I said, my first guest will be Jack Harvey, driving the last 2 races for Dale Coyne. So be here. You'll want to see him. Now, if you are a poster collector, the museum folk were very kind and have given me a bunch of posters, which you're welcome to help yourself. I don't care. Here they are. It is a phenomenal, I'm on the camera. It's a phenomenal one. If you want, come up, help yourself. I got quite a number. I'm not sure what the number is, but it's quite a number. So help yourself. I want to thank everyone for being here, listening, watching. Don't forget to tell your friends we're not only live on YouTube, we're on Twitter and Facebook. And I think the Facebook address is autosport.com show for the Facebook page. Thanks for being here. See you next week. Good night.